Home buyers abandoning mortgages. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian here, and welcome to another episode of Heiser Says. Grab your stein of coffee. I want to have a look at this article from Yahoo Finance, originally from Bloomberg, discussing what's happening in China. The China property crisis is spiraling with home buyers boycott. So you've got bank runs happening all across China at the moment, and you've also got, people just not paying their mortgages. So, former UBS Group AG economist Jonathan Anderson once called it the most important sector in the universe. More than a decade on, Chinese property is again grabbing the attention of global investors, this time for all the wrong reasons. Now, here in Australia, Chinese property is very important to us. It has in the past stimulated significant demand for the natural resources and exports that have come out of Australia. So, we want to hope that continues. Mounting signs of stress this week in an industry that accounts for about a quarter of the world's second largest economy have roiled China's credit markets, dragged down the nation's bank stocks, and plummeted commodities from iron ore to copper. Well, let's jump over here and have a look at some commodity prices, guys. We have a look here. We can see here. Iron ore is down. I haven't looked at it in a while. Look at iron ore, coal, copper. So iron ore down to 100 USD. Now that's a big fall, everyone. I remember I was getting quite used to it being over $150 USD. Now here in Australia, you've got to remember iron ore, our government or the previous government has budgeted on a royalty stream from iron ore revenues of $50 USD a ton. So they're doing much better than they expected. And coal, coal is just, whoa. There you go. There you go, guys. All of you working in the coal mines, keep going. Keep making that coal. Look at that. That is insane. Is that the highest it's been? Almost. Look at that, $410 a ton. Well, there you have it, guys. Newcastle coal futures, the benchmark, $400 per ton. Moving away from an almost record high of $430 as investors unwound some long positions on the back of prospects of increased supply. China, the world's largest coal consumer, announced it could lift a nearly 2-year ban on Australian coal. There you go. Well, there you go. I wonder, did the ban actually amount to anything? It just drove up prices, didn't it? So it kind of worked in our favor. Let me know your favorite coal stock. And copper. Oh, I love seeing that, actually. Because I sold some copper pipe I tore out of my house here, and I've got to get new copper put in. So yeah, go down, right down. 50 cents a ton. That's what we want. We want cheap copper. That's completely biased here. So anyway, back to the article. After a burst of optimism this year that looser regulatory curbs might stem the industry's debt crisis, investors are getting spooked by rolling COVID lockdowns and a rapidly escalating home buyer boycott of mortgage payments on stalled projects. Well, that seems quite reasonable, doesn't it? If the project isn't going ahead, not pay the mortgage. Although, you have to feel sorry. I mean, you've got the people here in Mascot Towers. They're still got an uninhabitable building. Still paying mortgages on it. It's a nightmare. The bigger worry is that a widespread loss of confidence in real estate will put major strain on China's economy and financial system, which is sitting on 46 trillion yuan, 6.8 trillion of outstanding mortgages, and still has 13 trillion yuan of loans to the country's beleaguered developers. Property has been getting steadily worse the whole time. Prices, sales, starts, all terrible, said Craig Botham, chief China economist at Penthon Macroeconomics in London. The chronic deterioration has now taken another step. It was always going to hit the financial sector eventually, given the prevalence of collateral in loan books with large real estate portions. What started as trouble with China Evergrande Group is now snowballing into a crisis that risks engulfing the majority of the country's developers, its biggest lenders, and a middle class that has significant wealth tied to the property market. China's home prices have tumbled 10 months straight, according to data released on Friday. The whole pyramid is collapsing now, said Anne Stevenson Yang, co-founder of J Capital Research. What's different is that things are worse now because of the Evergrande crisis a year ago, which is spreading its tentacles throughout the Chinese economy. The turmoil has battered what was already one of the world's most stressed industries. The average yield on Chinese junk dollar debt, which is dominated by developers, has surged to almost 26%. Selling has also spread to investment-grade builders, with a bond issued by China Vanco, the second largest builder by sales, falling to a record low of 81.6 cents on the dollar this week. China's COVID-zero policy is exacerbating the situation by dampening demand for property and depressing economic activity. Lockdowns remain commonplace in China, which continues to stick to a policy for keeping out the virus with stringent curbs. A recent flare-up in Shanghai has spurred concerns the city could be heading for another lockdown. So, how property concerns that mortgage boycotts will lead to a rise in souring loans sent a gauge of Chinese banks' shares tumbling almost 8% this week. Its worst loss in more than 4 years. An index of developer stock sank 10%, with Country Garden Holdings Co., the nation's biggest builder, tumbling 27%. Chinese authorities held emergency meetings with major banks this week to discuss the mortgage boycotts on concern that more buyers may follow suit, according to people familiar with the matter. Always people familiar with the matter. Some lenders plan to tighten their mortgage lending requirements in high-risk cities, two of the people said. The housing ministry in Xinjiang became one of the first government agencies to address the issue publicly, saying it will penalize developers who cause social incidents due to failure of project delivery. Home buyers have stopped mortgage payments on at least 100 projects in more than 50 cities as of Wednesday, according to researcher China Real Estate Information Corp. That's up from 58 projects on Tuesday and only 28 on Monday, according to Jefferies Financial Group Inc. analysis, including Xinjing Chen. If more home buyers cease payment, the spreading trend will not only threaten the health of the financial system, but also create social issues amid the current economic downturn, Betty Wang, a senior economist at Australia and New Zealand Banking Group, wrote in a note on Thursday. Banks are rushing to reassure investors that risks from loans to home buyers were controllable, with at least 10 firms issuing statements. Doesn't this sound familiar? Didn't something happen previously where people just stopped paying their mortgages? I'm sure. Maybe I'm just imagining it. Maybe. State-owned Agricultural Bank of China said it held 660 million yuan of overdue loans on unfinished homes, while smaller rival International Bank Co. said 1.6 billion yuan of mortgages were impacted, of which 384 million yuan had become delinquent. Nomura Holdings Inc. said the refusal to pay mortgages stems from the widespread practice in China of selling homes before they're built. Confidence that projects will be completed has weakened as developers' cash woes intensified. The good old buying off the plan, something I'm not a fan of here in Australia, and I would be even less of a fan of overseas, particularly in China, but there you go. Nomura economists led by Ting Lu estimated that Chinese developers have only delivered around 60% of homes they pre-sold between 13 and 20, while in those years China's mortgage loans rose by 26.3 trillion. GF Security Go expects that as much as 2 trillion yuan of mortgages could be impacted by the boycott. So China's credit market is plunging into a new phase of distress. Housing in China has gone from being a sure bet over the past 2 decades to a growing risk. The government cracked down on leveraging the real estate industry, helping drive up debt refinancing costs for developers and triggering a record wave of defaults. Home sales tumbled 41.7% in May from a year earlier, with investment dropping 7.8%. The real estate industry has an oversized impact on the economy. Sounds familiar. What other countries do we know that it feels like that's going on? I wonder. Anyway, when related sectors like construction and property services are included, real estate accounts for more than a quarter of Chinese economic output by some estimates. About 70% of household wealth is stored in property, along with 30 to 40% of bank loan books, while land sales account for 30 to 40% of local government revenues, according to Pantheon Macroeconomics Botham. The worsening crisis will test authorities' ability to minimize the fallout. Earlier this year, China was setting up a stability fund to provide support to troubled financial firms as risks to the economy grew. Handling such issues will be key for President Xi Jinping, ahead of a leadership confab, widely expected to cement his rule for life. Data Friday shows China's economy grew at the slowest pace since the country was first hit by the coronavirus outbreak 2 years ago. The 0.4% expansion in gross domestic product reported for the 3 months to June, while dozens of cities, including Shanghai and Shenzhen, imposed lockdowns, was the second weakest ever recorded. Wow. Goldman Sachs Group cut its full-year forecast for China to 3.3% in the wake of the data. Now that's a big deal. That's a big deal. That'd be a recession for China, pretty much, going from what they've at least been telling us they've been producing. The slowdown in construction is also hurting demand for building materials. Iron ore slumped more than 8% on Thursday, falling below $100 a ton for the first time since December, and dipped further on Friday. A year ago, iron ore was trading comfortably over about $200 a ton. With China's wave of COVID-era stimulus feeding a boom for property and steelmaking, futures for steel, rebar, and construction collapsed in Shanghai to their weakest since 2020. Copper tumbled to a 20-month low. So there we go, everyone. Let's have a talk about this one. As I've said many times in the past, and I'm sure you're all aware of, Australia has a significant relationship with China. They're our biggest export destination. So any slump in the construction sector in China doesn't bode well for Australia. We kind of want them to just, go nuts and keep building their pointless ghost cities and using up all of these resources that we ship over. We want to make money on that, guys. But if that doesn't happen, well, that could have some consequences for certain parts of the economy. You've got to remember, WA, what is it, like a quarter? Do I have that in here? A quarter of their revenue. There you go. 24% of the government revenue in WA comes from iron ore royalties, guys. So it's a big part of our economy. Don't kid yourself. So let's keep an eye on this, and let's see if these people who are buying off the plans and just refuse to pay for their mortgages, maybe that'll catch on here in Australia. What do you reckon? That'll get developers finishing their projects, or the banks will step in real quick. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this one in the comments below. If you enjoy the content I create and discuss, there's a few ways you can help out. Simply watching and enjoying the channel is a great way to do it. You can also financially support us via YouTube or Patreon. Use our referral links from Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or Aussie Broadband. Buy our Pocket Squares, or call us if you need an architect. Take care, everyone. Have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next episode. Could you imagine Aussies just walking away from their mortgages for their off-the-plan purchases? Here it's the other way around. Developers will screw over the buyers and then resell it for a higher value. What's worse?